What if the biggest problem facing women's basketball right now isn't talent, effort, or even respect, but timing? Because almost overnight, ratings stopped being just numbers and started becoming ammunition. What was supposed to be a fresh, exciting alternative suddenly turned into a measuring stick for everything the WNBA is arguing about behind closed doors. Star power, business leverage, media narratives, even who actually moves the needle. And here's the uncomfortable part. This story isn't really about one league failing or one player missing. It's about how quickly momentum can flip when expectations run ahead of reality. Fans noticed it, media noticed it, and owners definitely noticed it. Because once the numbers came in, the conversation changed fast, and the ripple effects didn't stop with viewership. They ran straight into negotiations, power dynamics, and the future of the league itself. And that's where things started getting complicated. When Unrivaled first launched, expectations were sky high. The concept sounded promising. Star players, faster pace, a different format designed to keep attention in a crowded sports calendar. On paper, it checked a lot of boxes. That's why the debut ratings mattered so much. Opening night isn't just another game, it's a statement. It's the moment when curiosity peaks, casual fans tune in, media outlets pay attention, and executives decide how seriously to take the product. But when the early numbers came out, they didn't match the hype. Not catastrophically low, but noticeably under what many expected, especially for a league trying to prove it can exist alongside, or even outside, the WNBA ecosystem. That gap between expectation and reality is where the tension began. Because ratings don't just reflect who watched, they reflect who didn't. And in sports media, that absence speaks loudly. Opening nights are supposed to be your strongest showing. Later games almost always dip as novelty fades. So when the first impression feels muted, it raises immediate questions. Was the marketing off? Was the timing wrong? Or was the audience simply not as invested as predicted? And here's the key part. This wasn't happening in isolation. These numbers landed at a moment when the WNBA and its players were already navigating fragile negotiations. That meant every data point suddenly carried extra weight. Some fans brushed it off as growing pains. Others saw it as proof of deeper issues. And online commentary quickly filled the gap between facts and speculation. But ratings weren't the full story yet. They were just the first visible crack. Because once people started asking why the numbers looked the way they did, one name dominated the conversation. It didn't take long for Caitlin Clark's name to enter the discussion, and once it did, it became impossible to ignore. To be clear, this wasn't driven by official league messaging. It was driven by fans, social media debates, comment sections, podcasts, the same places where narratives are built faster than facts can catch up. Some fans argued her absence exposed a visibility problem, that certain events still rely heavily on a small group of stars to draw attention. Others pushed back hard, saying this mindset unfairly reduces an entire league to one player. And that tension is important, because both sides believe they're defending the sport. One side is focused on reach and growth. The other is focused on balance and respect. What made this debate explosive wasn't whether Clark is popular, that part is obvious. It was what her absence symbolized. To some, it suggested missed opportunity. To others, it revealed how fragile media-driven attention can be. And again, none of this was official positioning. These were fan interpretations colliding in real time. But perception matters, especially when it becomes loud enough to influence headlines. The deeper issue wasn't dependency, it was expectation. Fans expected immediate impact, immediate buzz, immediate proof that star power had spread evenly across the sport. When that didn't happen, the conversation shifted from excitement to comparison. And comparison is rarely neutral. Because once you start comparing who draws viewers, the discussion naturally expands. It stops being about one player. It becomes about which players actually hold attention and why. And that's when the spotlight widened. At this point, Paige Bueckers and Angel Reese were pulled into the conversation, not because of anything they did wrong, but because of what they represent. Paige is often praised for her skill, consistency, and on-court intelligence. Angel is known for energy, personality, and moments that spark reaction. Both are stars, but they generate attention in very different ways. And that difference matters more than people like to admit, because popularity isn't one thing. There's respect-based popularity and there's engagement-driven popularity. One earns admiration, the other creates conversation. In modern sports media, conversation often wins, not because it's better basketball, but because it keeps people watching, reacting, and sharing. That doesn't mean controversy is required. It means personality and narrative play a role alongside performance. This is where the idea of the quiet star becomes tricky. Players who dominate without drama can struggle to break through in a landscape built on highlights and emotion, not because they lack talent, but because attention is competitive. Angel Reese thrives in that environment. Love her or criticize her, people tune in. Paige Bueckers commands respect, but respect doesn't always translate into urgency. That contrast fueled online debate. Not fair debate, but loud debate. And once again, expectations collided with reality. The worst part, timing. This conversation hit while leagues were trying to prove strength, not invite comparison. And while fans argued over star power, something much more serious was unfolding behind the scenes. While social media focused on ratings and personalities, the WNBA was approaching a critical deadline, the collective bargaining agreement. Breanna Stewart's comments didn't sound dramatic. They sounded measured, but that calm tone masked how serious the situation actually was. A status quo period sounds harmless. In reality, it means uncertainty. Under a status quo, operations continue, but nothing is guaranteed. Negotiations stay open, but pressure increases, and both sides quietly prepare for leverage plays. Importantly, this wasn't an official lockout announcement, but it was a signal that patience was thinning, and that timelines mattered more than optimism. Fans often underestimate how business-driven these moments are. Emotions don't drive outcomes here. Data does, stability does, long-term planning does. So when negotiations reached this point, while alternative leagues were being evaluated publicly, the stakes rose instantly. Every headline mattered, every metric mattered. And that uncertainty shifted the balance in a way many didn't anticipate. Side leagues don't just offer opportunities for players, they offer information for owners. When owners see how audiences respond elsewhere, it shapes confidence. Not confidence in players, but confidence in timelines, confidence in leverage, confidence in waiting. If alternative platforms struggle to capture attention, urgency fades. Negotiations slow. Risk tolerance increases. That's not punishment, that's strategy. From a business standpoint, patience becomes a weapon, especially when data suggests fans will return regardless of short-term tension. This doesn't mean owners are winning. It means they feel less pressure to rush. And in negotiations, pressure is everything. But fans didn't see it that way. Online discourse exploded. Some blamed players, some blamed owners, others blamed media bias, and most arguments lived at the extremes. What got lost was nuance. Ratings became proof of failure instead of a snapshot. Negotiations became personal instead of structural. Media thrives on conflict. Fans thrive on emotion. Business thrives on patience. And those three forces rarely align. That disconnect is what defines this moment. Not disrespect, not greed, but misaligned expectations. And that brings us to the real question. This story isn't over. Ratings will fluctuate, stars will rise and fall, negotiations will continue. But the bigger issue is sustainability. Can momentum be built without perfect conditions? Can leagues grow without constant comparison? Because the future of women's basketball may depend less on who draws the most viewers today, and more on how the sport handles moments like this. And right now, everyone is watching.